This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 321.
I program my own computer.
We have a server crash, 404 error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. We have the technology. Why, hello everybody. This is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. All right, upcoming events. Sadly, there are no WordCamps that I saw, either obviously in person or online, as we are still all, everyone's being home-based and not self-quarantining, stay at home it's across the U.S. as well as other countries as well. So, no WordCamps that I saw online. Kind of a bummer. So, but it doesn't mean you can't get together. It can't mean you can't Zoom on your own, kind of learn something, take a course, reach out to me if you want. If you want to, hey, you know what? Let me know. If you want, I will put together something. Well, maybe I'll do an Ask Me Anything session. Well, that'll be kind of fun. Just shoot me a message on Twitter or email me, adam@kitchensinkwp.com. And in the next week or two, maybe midweek, like a Wednesday, WordPress Wednesday, we'll call it. Or maybe I'll do a little webinar of some sort or something, just an open Zoom room. We'll do that. I'll have a password because I don't want any Zoom bombing. Anyway, so no upcoming events yet. All right, moving on, segment one in the news. A couple things to talk about here. A securityaffairs.co website, they found an e-skimmer was found on a WooCommerce plugin, like on a website using WooCommerce. An e-skimmer, electronic skimmer, like the credit card skimmers, but an e-version. Fascinating. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and we'll talk about more about that in a second, actually, in the meat and potatoes. So yeah, be careful. Hackers and scammers are everywhere, apparently. GitHub also changed some pricing. Recently, they introduced new pricing features, so it's free for everybody. Private repos now with unlimited collaborators are now available for all accounts. They've reduced prices for some of the old paid plans. So kind of interesting there. There'll be a link in the show notes. And lastly, the news, we are halfway through the month of April, and I should have shared this 2 weeks ago. I didn't realize it. Pluralsight is free for the month of April. Pluralsight is a place you can go to take online courses and learn stuff while we are potentially having more time at home. So there you go. So is that it in the news? That is it in the news. Yeah, okay. Moving on, segment two, meat and potatoes of this week's episode. SQL hacks and what they are, why they are, how to protect yourself. Usually, websites get hacked and how that happens. So recently, I've been listening to a new podcast, well, new to me, called Darknet Diaries. Thanks to my friend Elisa. It's a great show. She's the one who recommended it to me. And it got me thinking about my old roots as a hacker. Yes, I was at one point a hacker, a good old phone freak. That's spelled Phreak for those who want to look that up. And that's all I can say about that right now. So if you want to ask me about that offline, by all means, let me know. And with hearing about the recent hacking, skimming attack on the WooCommerce thing I just mentioned, it got me thinking about hacking WordPress. Can it still be done? Is it still being done? Why is it done? How? And all that and whatnot. So I looked into it, and the two most common ways currently to hack into WordPress are through XSS and SQL injections, with the primary goal, one of the goals being there, privilege escalation, having access to things, right? So I dove into the rabbit hole of research mode, i.e. YouTube, and found some interesting things, to say the least. I even set up a local environment to test my hacking skills, to see what I can learn just from, the old, what's it called, not code junkies, but I can't think of the right word. There used to be a thing where script kiddies. That's what it was called. Yes. Anyway, so I set up a local environment. I use Damn Vulnerable Web Application, DVWA. There's a website for this. It's really kind of interesting and cool. It's a site that lets you download a set of files to install in a local environment as a pen test, as a penetration test, because that way you have legalities to do it. If you try to do this against a live site out there that you don't have legalities, you are breaking the law. And there's a whole industry about this, by the way. You can become a pen tester as well. So there's also some coursework over at W3 Schools, which I also checked out. Very interesting things. So this week, I'm going to share what I found out about SQL injections. I very well may come back to a future episode to discuss XSS, cross-scripting hacks as well, because it's crazy. People want access to what they're not supposed to have access to. And there's a lot to talk about here. And I'm going to try to keep it lighter. It can be really codey, which we're not going to get into, of course, in an audio format. But First and foremost, what is SQL for those who are asking? SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It lets you execute queries, insert, update, delete records into the database. The database is what holds all of our data in WordPress, right? It's SQL in the back end. My PHP lets you see that SQL database. Okay. A sample of a query might be the login of a website. Login form asks for a username and a password. And then when you hit enter, it sends that request to the database. It takes the username, it takes the password, it sends the query, right? And then we get a result. That's how that works, okay? And it's really fast, obviously. Why the injection works, how this works. So the SQL injection is an attack that really ruins the dynamic statement that comments out certain parts of the statement, and it appends it. So it adds a condition. So you may add, username plus something. There might be a way to, add a condition to something. So like 1 + 1 = 2. It's always true. It takes advantage of that flaw if the application has been poorly written, and then it executes a statement with a malicious code. So it's like I said, it's kind of I don't want to say nerdy, but it's just technically speaking, hard to describe it. You have to see it in code written out. And the more I read about it, the more it's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy how simple it could be if somebody didn't plan properly to block this malicious code being added to the end of a statement, an end of a query. Okay. And by the way, a piece of trivia for you: the first injection was discovered by Jeff Forrestal back in 1998. It's been over 20 years when the first time this ever happened, and he figured it out. He found out about it. Pretty interesting guy. So, how do you prevent the SQL injections with WordPress specifically? Well, as long as you're running the latest version of core files, you're fine. That's right, you're totally fine. But let me repeat that. Core files. The issue here is the third-party add-ons, themes, and plugins, right? Because you don't have control, or it's not that you don't have control. Developers come in all levels of expertise and knowledge. So the steps to take is to keep things up to date. So I spoke to a friend of mine who's a WordPress core contributor about this topic. And they said they do consider and they test functions during the development process of new updates, of new WordPress releases, both majors and minors, etc. So they are good developers in this case. It's in air quotes. They are good developers. Other developers may not be as disciplined or knowledgeable when they write themes or plugins, and they may not do things in best practices matters here. With that said, like here's an example. I mean, let's say a theme developer wants to add a comment to the post, like an archive page, but of a post. And here's a little code for you. They put it in WP_insert_comment function versus sending that's where you want to put it, versus sending it right to the WP comments table. There's a right way and a wrong way to do certain things. If you did it the wrong way, then you have an opportunity, or a hacker has an opportunity to insert code that goes to the wrong place that can exploit things on the back end. Okay, so I realize this is getting really technical. Let's not forget how and why this is done. It's done because of, access. It's that simple. People want access to do things. And that kind of connects to my old school days, my old days back in high school and college, about social engineering. Because once you have access, let's say emails, for that matter, once I know that an active email list is on that site of users, of buyers, of admins, customers, really, let's say, I can then get going on social engineering. I can start a phishing scam once I have the names and emails, and then I can hone the attack if I was a black hat hacker. If I'm a white hat hacker, I'm trying to prove that I can get into your site and then help you close your holes in the site. So again, it can get really technical really quickly. The key is to keep WordPress core up to date and keep plugins and themes up to date. And, if you're a developer, use best practices, right? Learn what those are, what's going on, what's been deprecated, what needs to be updated as well. So there's that. It's kind of crazy. It's a crazy world out there these days. And I just wanted to share with you that, things have to be updated and backed up as well. And, yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. There's just a lot. I mean, I got in deep for I used a couple full days here of just diving into this past 2 weeks ago. I started in that pen test with that DVWA. That's pretty amazing stuff. So, but yeah. Am I going to go back into that business? Probably not at the moment. So no. Anyway, so there you have it. All right, moving on. Segment 3. Hope that helps you, by the way. If you have information you want to share about SQL injections and databases and exploits that you know about, by all means, let me know. Or hey, if you actually know about an exploit in a widely public used plugin or theme, there are proper ways and methodologies to go about letting that company know before it gets released, because you don't want to, it's a 0-day exploit. You don't want to announce it without giving the proper, quote, authorities, the developers, chance to fix it first. That way they can push out an update, etc. You don't want to give hackers that head start, unless you're a bad person. So, okay. Moving on, segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week, it's a plugin from my buddy Scott DeLuzio. He wrote a plugin called Leave It at the Door for WooCommerce. He realized that there was a need right now with the social distancing and deliveries and whatnot. So if a storefront website is using WooCommerce, there's now an option, an add-on that he wrote. It's a plugin. It's free, completely free in the repo. Leave It at the Door for WooCommerce. As of right now, recording, it's gotten 30 plus active installations. It just came out literally last week, was updated a couple days ago. Check it out. I trust Scott and his coding ability, so I don't think there's any issues there about being hacked. So there you go. Leave at door for WooCommerce. Pretty cool. So there it is. I'm going to wrap it up this week. If you have any questions, by all means, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@KitchensinkWP.com, or use the SpeakPipe function on the website. If you want to support the show, you can do that. You can become a Patreon. I would appreciate it. KitchensinkWP.com/Patreon. You want to sponsor the show? I would also appreciate that. That'd be fantastic. There's a form on the website. Thanks for listening. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right? Bye-bye.